Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I will move a motion that I had put on notice, and I'll read it, that given the large workload the committee is managing, the committee instructs the chair to schedule 5 meetings between July 8th, 2024 and September 13th, 2024 to address the report of the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians titled Special Report on Foreign Interference in Canada's Democratic Processes and Institutions, tabled in Parliament on June 3rd, 2024, and to continue the committee's ongoing work on foreign election interference. And with that, Mr. Chair, I will make very brief remarks. This committee has a lot of work that is outstanding. That includes Bill C-65, which has passed second reading and that is going to be referred to our committee. It's a bit legislation, government legislation that takes priority. We have Scott Reed's motion, as well as Alex Ruff's private members bill. We continue our work on this study with respect to the question of privilege arising from the cyber attack directed against 18 parliamentarians, and we are continuing work with respect to the broader issue of foreign interference, and there are a number of issues that have arisen coming out of the NSCOP report, the NSIRA report, as well as the Hogue report. So having regard for all of that, I think it is necessary that this committee meet over the summer. 5 meetings. I think that's a very reasonable compromise to try to get some of the work around foreign interference done so that we can move on in the fall to deal with government legislation, as well as the private members' motion and private members' bill that we must review.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Cooper. The speaking order to begin debate on Mr. Cooper's motion is as follows. Should you want your name added to the list, simply let me know. Mr. Garretson, followed by Ms. Matheson, followed by Mr. Jennis. Mr. Garretson, the floor is yours.
Well, first to our witnesses, I just want to thank you for being here today. And I can only imagine the frustration of repeating the same thing over and over and over to be met by a complete stonewall from my 4 Conservative colleagues who are just unwilling to accept or listen to what the witnesses have been telling us today repeatedly. There is just so much desire from my Conservative colleagues to make this as hyper-partisan as possible. They're not interested in actually dealing with the issue of foreign interference, despite the fact that it is an extremely serious issue that needs to be dealt with seriously. They're interested in political gain. Mr. Cooper, I'll tell you what's going on here. Mr. Cooper wants us to vote against this so he can walk out and film a video and put it out there on social media. Oh, Mr. Mr. Jennis will help him do that. I'm sure they'll film videos of each other so that they can then go, Mr. Chair, and try to fundraise off this by saying cover up and all this stuff. Meanwhile, I mean, if you had just walked into this room, Mr. Chair, and not known where you were going and just happened to sit in the back of this room and just listen to the exchanges that are going on here today, the average layperson, completely unbiased to any of this, completely uninformed, would probably leave here completely bewildered at the fact that Conservatives are just unwilling to listen to a single word that the witnesses they call before the committee have offered. Madame Drain made an extremely a good observation early on in her second half of this discussion today. She talked about this is not partisan. This is about Canadian democracy. This is about upholding the institutions that we have. And Mr. Cooper just wants to take more and more pot shots at the Prime Minister over this because he sees political opportunity of this. You know, Mr. Cooper just moments ago, when talking about this, talked about a private member's bill.
Point of order, Chair.
Oh, am I getting
Mr. Garretson,
skin a little bit there?
No. Sorry, Mr. Colleagues, we had a really good 95 minutes or so. Or
I know, I
whatever it
sat
was.
through it all.
And we are...
I'm interrupting you.
Guys, I have a point of order from Mr. Jennis. I'm going to give him the floor to speak to that point of order. Following that, I'm going to return Mr. Gerritsen, please. Thank you. I'm going to afford Mr. Jennis the opportunity for his point of order. I'll go back to Mr. Gerritsen. Colleagues, I hope we can be productive in the next number of minutes. So, Mr. Jennis, the floor is yours.
At risk of violating Napoleon's most famous advice, I will just point out that my colleague is far afield of the topic of the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Jennis, for your observation. Mr. Gerritsen?
So Mr. Cooper, in his comments, which I found to be wildly ironic, just moments ago, started to talk about a private member's bill introduced by Mr. Ruff. Mr. Ruff is a Conservative colleague of ours who sits in the House of Commons and actually is only one of a small handful of parliamentarians that sit on the NSICOP committee. Mr. Ruff is Mr. Cooper, Mr. Genius, Mr. Duncan, and Mr. Berthold's connection to security.
Monsieur le Président, j'aurais eu un...
Chair, I've got a point of order, please.
Mr. Gerritsen, we have a point of order. Madame Gill, à vous.
Over to you, Madam Gill. Simply, well, as I'm stepping in for Madame Goudreau, if you can hear me, I've stepped in to replace Madame Goudreau, and I wanted to check that you've seen that my hand was raised before the intervention and the point of order from Mr. Jennis. So I would like to follow on after Mr. Gerritsen, but of course, quite politely, I'd like to let him finish his intervention. But I just wanted to make sure that you'd seen that I'd raised my hand to speak briefly as well. Yes, I very much appreciate your comments, and I'll add your name to the list. Thank you.
The floor remains yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as I was saying, Mr. Ruff, and I'm speaking directly to the comments of the Conservative member who introduced this motion, who referenced his private member's bill. Mr. Ruff is one of only a small handful of parliamentarians that sit on NSICOP. And for those that might just randomly be tuning into this, NSICOP is the secret committee of parliamentarians that reviews sensitive information, that has all the security clearances to do that. Mr. Ruff does not support the narrative of these conservative colleagues sitting here, despite the fact that Mr. Cooper invoked his name moments ago. As a matter of fact, this is what Mr. Ruff said just a few days ago on June the 10th. He said, every single parliamentarian, in fact, I would encourage every single Canadian, read the report from start to finish. The fact is that an issue that needs to be resolved, referring to foreign interference. And this is the important part, Mr. Chair. You want to tone down the partisanship and up your game on national security intelligence. We all need to do a better job of educating ourselves on what the threats are, what the vulnerabilities are, and how to deal with them going forward. Mr. Ruff also said, he said, quote, to build on what Mr. McGuinty said, I am 100% in agreement. I notice my Conservative colleagues are chatting with each other, which doesn't surprise me because that's what they did during the time that the witnesses were speaking, because they have no interest in hearing this. But at least for having it on the record, I just want to reiterate this point. He said, and I am 100% in agreement. The Prime Minister is not redacting anything. It's the process that we go through that allows those redactions to occur to protect national security, national defense, and mainly international relationships. Mr. Ruff, who is on NSICOP, who is a Conservative member of Parliament, is chastising these 4 individuals for the way that they're acting today. Mr. Chair, I move that we adjourn the debate.
Okay, colleagues.
Point of order, Chair. Point of order. Is this member trying to shut down debate when others haven't even been able to reply because he doesn't want to have to work this summer? Is that what's happening, Chair?
Mr. Jennis. Mr. Janice. I think I have your name right. We have a motion that has
Mr.
been
Garrison
put
just say
forward,
boo-hoo, get over it
and
again?
we have, guys, do I have to suspend? Or can I just get to the order of business here? I'm not tending to the point of order because we have had a motion to adjourn. You know very well that that is what we call a dilatory motion. We're going to go to a vote. Mr. Clerk, I'm going to ask you to call the vote to adjourn debate on the motion that was moved, what seems like ages ago now, by Mr. Cooper. Mr. Clerk.
Ms. Romanato.
Oui.
Madame Fortier.
Oui.
Mr. Duguid.
Yes.
Monsieur Lauzon.
Oui.
Mr. Gerritsen. Mr. Cooper.
No.
Mr. Janice.
No.
Mr. Duncan.
Nope.
Mr. Berthold.
No.
Madame Gill.
Oui.
Ms. Matheson. 7 yeas, 4 nays.
There we go. Okay, colleagues, you've heard the results. We have adjourned debate on the motion.